Alice's journey begins with a fall down the rabbit hole. At first, it appears whimsical, even absurd, a child chasing a white rabbit into a strange world. But through a Jungian lens, this fall represents a descent into the unconscious mind, the confrontation with hidden thoughts, desires, and fears that everyday life forces us to repress. Carl Jung often described the unconscious as a place both dark and fertile, where archetypes, universal images and patterns, reside. Alice's Wonderland is a manifestation of the unconscious, where logic is fluid, time is distorted, and ordinary rules no longer apply. The rabbit hole is the threshold of initiation. Psychologically, it symbolizes a moment we leave the safety of the conscious mind, stepping into uncertainty, where self-discovery, transformation, and confrontation with the shadow begin. Encounters with archetypes. Immediately, Alice meets figures who embody distinct archetypal energies. The white rabbit, the call to adventure, the pressure of societal expectations, the ego rushing toward obligations. The Cheshire Cat, the wise, ambiguous guide, symbol of the self, reminding Alice that reality is relative and perception is fluid. The Mad Hatter and March Hare, aspects of the trickster archetype, forcing Alice to question her assumptions, confront chaos, and embrace uncertainty. Each encounter is a psychological mirror. As Alice navigates Wonderland, she confronts different facets of her personality: ego, shadow, animus/animus, and the latent wisdom of the self. The first psychological lesson, embracing the unknown. Alice's confusion and disorientation reflect the adult fear of the unknown. Many of us, like Alice, encounter situations where rules collapse, certainty disappears, and old frameworks fail. Jung emphasized that such chaos is essential for personal growth. The journey through Wonderland is not meant to provide comfort, but to catalyze transformation, to confront fears instead of avoiding them, to engage with the irrational and creative aspects of the mind, to integrate fragmented parts of self into a more whole, conscious identity. Reflection for the listener. Ask yourself, where in my life have I been hesitant to enter the rabbit hole of uncertainty? Which parts of myself am I avoiding because they feel chaotic or unfamiliar? Can I see confusion and ambiguity as opportunities for growth rather than threats? The first part of Alice's journey reminds us that descent is necessary for insight, and that exploration of the unconscious is both disorienting and liberating. Why this matters. In life, the descent into Wonderland is mirrored by moments of transition, crisis, or change, college, career shifts, loss, or personal introspection. Psychologically, these moments are invitations to explore hidden dimensions of the self, to confront the shadow, and to engage creatively with uncertainty. Alice's experience shows that growth often begins with disorientation, and that courage is required to navigate the fluid, unpredictable world of the unconscious. Closing reflection of Part 1. As Alice tumbles down, we too are reminded, the journey inward begins in uncertainty. The fall is the first step towards self-knowledge, individuation, and psychological wholeness. Wonderland is not just a place. It is a mirror of the mind, a symbolic landscape where transformation becomes possible if we dare to enter. The Mad Hatter and the March Hare, the trickster archetype. Alice soon meets the Mad Hatter and the March Hare at the famous tea party. At first glance, their chaotic behavior seems absurd, even humorous. But from a Jungian perspective, they represent the trickster archetype, agents of chaos, ambiguity, and subversion. The trickster forces Alice to question her assumptions about reality. Time is meaningless, rules are arbitrary, and logic collapses. Psychologically, these figures teach a critical lesson. Growth often emerges when old frameworks fail. The Hatter's madness reflects the unconscious mind breaking through the conscious ego. The tea party's endless loop symbolizes repetitive patterns in life, which often feel nonsensical until understood. By interacting with the trickster, Alice confronts her need for order and control, and begins to embrace uncertainty, creativity, and flexible thinking. The Cheshire Cat, guidance of the self. The Cheshire Cat is enigmatic, appearing and disappearing at will, smiling knowingly. Jung would consider this character a manifestation of the self, the guiding archetype that represents wholeness and psychological balance. The cat teaches Alice that the path forward is within herself, not an external validation. His cryptic advice, "We're all mad here" reminds us that sanity is relative and understanding comes from embracing paradox. Psychologically, this encounter encourages the integration of opposites: logic and intuition, conscious and unconscious, control and surrender. The Cheshire Cat is a mentor disguised as a trickster, helping Alice navigate the unconscious. The Queen of Hearts, the shadow archetype. No analysis of Wonderland would be complete without the Queen of Hearts, whose obsession with control, authority, and punishment is extreme. She represents the shadow archetype, the dark, repressed, and often feared part of the psyche. Her "off with their heads" outbursts symbolize the destructive potential of unacknowledged anger, fear, or aggression within us. The Queen's arbitrary rule reflects how the shadow can dominate when ignored or denied. Alice's encounters with the Queen teach an essential Jungian lesson: facing the shadow is necessary for maturity. Only by acknowledging these darker aspects can one achieve psychological integration and wholeness. Reflection for the listener. Ask yourself, where in my life do I resist chaos? And what might I learn by embracing it? Which of my behaviors or fears resemble the Queen of Hearts? Unchecked, destructive, or irrational? Can I recognize the guides in my life, like the Cheshire Cat, that show me hidden truths about myself? These encounters reveal that the world outside is a mirror of the world inside. Every challenge, absurdity, or confrontation in Wonderland reflects an internal psychological process waiting for awareness. Why this matters. Jungian psychology emphasizes that archetypes guide our development, even when we are unaware of them. Tricksters challenge rigidity and provoke growth. Mentors guide us towards self-understanding. Shadows force us to confront what we repress. Alice's journey shows that psychological growth is not linear or comfortable. It involves disorientation, reflection, and courage to face the unknown and the repressed. Closing reflection of Part 2. Alice leaves each encounter slightly wiser, though confused. She is learning that madness, guidance, and shadow coexist within every psyche. Her journey reminds us that life's challenges are not obstacles. They are invitations to self-awareness and transformation. Wonderland is not merely a whimsical fantasy. It is a psychological landscape, reflecting the inner workings of the mind and offering lessons for those willing to see beyond the absurdity. Alice's changes in size, the fluidity of identity. Throughout Wonderland, Alice experiences dramatic shifts in size. She grows enormous, then shrinks to a tiny figure. At first, these transformations feel absurd, even comical. Psychologically, they represent the fluid and dynamic nature of identity. Carl Jung's concept of individuation, the process of becoming one's true self, requires adaptability and confrontation with different aspects of the psyche. Growing larger symbolizes moments of inflated ego or overconfidence, when we feel too big for the world. Shrinking reflects vulnerability, humility, and self-doubt, when challenges make us feel small and powerless. Alice learns that neither extreme is permanent. True psychological growth requires flexibility, the ability to navigate life's pressures without losing one's core self. Portals and labyrinths, navigating the unconscious. Wonderland is full of doors, keys, and twisting corridors. These passages are symbolic portals into the unconscious mind. Each choice, each unlocked door, represents a decision to confront unknown aspects of self. The labyrinthine nature of Wonderland mirrors the complexity of the unconscious, full of surprises, obstacles, and hidden truths. Losing one's way in the corridors is akin to getting lost in thoughts, emotions, or patterns that seem confusing or threatening. Jung would argue that navigating these mental mazes is essential for self-discovery. Only by moving through uncertainty and ambiguity can we integrate the unconscious into consciousness. The caterpillar, the voice of transformation. Alice meets the blue caterpillar, sitting calmly on a mushroom, smoking a hookah. This archetype represents contemplation, transformation, and guidance. The caterpillar asks, "Who are you?" A direct confrontation with identity. Psychologically, this question is central. The ego must recognize its fluidity and confront its multiplicity. Through this encounter, Alice begins to understand that selfhood is not fixed. Growth and adaptation require questioning one's identity, embracing change, and integrating new insights. Reflection for the listener. Ask yourself, how flexible am I in adapting to change? Do I resist uncertainty and transformation, or do I see it as an opportunity for growth? Which labyrinths in my life have I avoided, and what truths might I discover by exploring them? Alice's experiences show that identity is not static. Life continually challenges us to grow, shrink, and redefine ourselves, and these shifts are signs of psychological maturity. Why this matters? The size changes, doors, and labyrinths of Wonderland are not merely whimsical. They are metaphors for psychological development. To grow psychologically, we must face ambiguity and uncertainty. To integrate the self, we must confront our fears, doubts, and limitations. Transformation requires flexibility, reflection, and courage. Alice's journey is a reminder. Personal growth is a dynamic process, full of challenges, surprises, and profound lessons about identity. Closing reflection of Part 3. As Alice navigates the doors, corridors, and size changes, she begins to recognize that Wonderland is a map of her own mind. Each transformation and obstacle is an invitation to explore, integrate, and evolve. The lessons of Part 3 are clear. Growth, self-awareness, and psychological resilience emerge from flexibility, curiosity, and courage to face the unknown. The Cheshire Cat, the guide of the self. The Cheshire Cat remains one of the most enigmatic figures in Wonderland. Appearing and disappearing at will, its wide smile and cryptic advice make Alice both curious and uneasy. From a Jungian perspective, the cat embodies a self-archetype, the guiding force towards psychological wholeness. The cat teaches Alice that reality is relative. We're all mad here. This madness is not disorder, but the fluidity of consciousness, encouraging her to embrace paradox, uncertainty, and multiple perspectives. Psychologically, the Cheshire Cat represents inner guidance. It invites Alice and the listener to trust intuition and navigate life's complexities without clinging to rigid rules. The logic games of Wonderland. Throughout her journey, Alice encounters illogical scenarios, impossible riddles, nonsensical conversations, and contradictory rules. These games of logic challenge her ego and habitual thinking. Jung would interpret this as a confrontation with the irrational aspects of the unconscious, forcing the conscious mind to expand and integrate new patterns. For adults, this reflects how life often presents paradoxes and challenges that defy reason. Learning to navigate them without frustration is a key step in psychological growth. Chaos and order, embracing ambiguity. Wonderland is a land where chaos reigns, yet meaning emerges if one observes carefully. The disorientation mirrors the unconscious mind, where logic is absent and multiple truths coexist. Alice's adaptability demonstrates that embracing chaos allows for creativity, insight, and integration of shadow aspects. Jung emphasized that integration comes not from control, but from acceptance. Chaos is a teacher, revealing aspects of self that structure reality often hides. Reflection for the listener. Ask yourself, how comfortable am I with uncertainty and ambiguity? Do I resist the madness of life, or can I see it as an invitation to growth? Where in my life do I need to integrate paradox, flexibility, and intuition? The Cheshire Cat and Wonderland's chaos are not obstacles. They are mirrors of our inner world, highlighting where adaptation, reflection, and insight are needed. Why this matters. Alice's encounters remind us that life cannot always be approached logically or predictably. The self-archetype guides us through the unknown. Paradox and chaos are opportunities for creativity and psychological integration. Embracing uncertainty strengthens resilience and expands consciousness. Psychologically, Wonderland teaches that maturity is not the elimination of madness, but the ability to navigate it wisely. Closing reflection of Part 4. As Alice moves through Wonderland, she realizes that the strange and illogical world is a reflection of her own mind. The Cheshire Cat's smile reminds her, insight comes not from controlling the world, but from understanding oneself amidst its chaos. The lesson is profound. To grow, we must embrace the irrational, trust the self, and learn from life's paradoxes. The Queen of Hearts, the shadow archetype. The Queen of Hearts dominates Wonderland with fear and arbitrary authority. Her constant cry of "off with their heads" embodies extreme control, aggression, and unchecked power. From a Jungian perspective, she represents the shadow archetype, the part of the psyche we fear, repress, or deny. The Queen's anger mirrors our own repressed emotions, especially rage, fear, or aggression. Her arbitrary punishments symbolize inner judgment, how we criticize ourselves or others without awareness. Encountering the Queen forces Alice and the listener to recognize that our shadow is not an enemy, but a guide. Ignoring it allows it to dominate, while confronting it allows integration and personal growth. Judgment and fear, the inner courtroom. Wonderland's trial scenes reflect inner judgment. Alice faces seemingly rational rules, highlighting how fear of authority can inhibit exploration and self-expression, how internalized criticism mirrors external control, limiting creativity and authenticity. Psychologically, this is a call to differentiate personal authority from internalized societal expectations. The Queen's domination teaches that confronting fear and shadow leads to liberation and self-sovereignty. Integration of the shadow. Jung emphasized that embracing the shadow is essential for individuation. Alice's encounters show that ignoring fear or aggression leads to stagnation. By witnessing the Queen's extremes, Alice learned to recognize and integrate her own shadow, balancing assertiveness with compassion and understanding. This mirrors real-life psychological growth. Confrontation with authority, external or internal, is necessary to develop autonomy and inner strength. Reflection for the listener. Ask yourself, where in my life do I feel ruled by fear, judgment, or repression? Which aspects of myself have I denied or ignored, allowing them to control me indirectly? How can I face my shadow with courage, integrating it rather than fearing it? The Queen of Hearts is a mirror, not a tyrant. Through her, we see the power of recognition, reflection, and conscious engagement with our inner darkness. Why this matters. Alice's journey teaches that fear and authority are not enemies but tools for growth. By acknowledging the shadow and confronting oppressive patterns, both internal and external, we gain psychological freedom. Shadow integration strengthens resilience. Awareness of fear transforms it into insight. Confronting judgment fosters authenticity and self-determination. Wonderland shows that true maturity comes not from avoiding danger or chaos, but from facing it with curiosity and courage. Closing reflection of Part 5. Alice learns that the Queen's tyranny is only as powerful as her fear allows. By observing, reflecting, and maintaining courage, she begins to navigate Wonderland with wisdom and self-awareness. The lesson is clear. Our fears, judgments, and shadow aspects are guides to growth, not threats to be avoided. The journey is a path to individuation. Alice's adventure is more than a fantastical story. It is a symbolic map of the psyche. Every encounter, every transformation, every paradoxical moment represents an aspect of psychological growth and individuation. The process Carl Jung described as becoming whole. The rabbit hole, entering the unconscious and confronting the unknown. The Mad Hatter and March Hare, learning to navigate chaos and embrace flexibility. The Cheshire Cat, discovering inner guidance and trusting intuition. The Queen of Hearts, facing fear, repression, and the shadow. Size transformations and labyrinths, understanding identity's fluidity and the necessity of adaptation. Each element of Wonderland mirrors the complexity, absurdity, and richness of the unconscious mind. Alice's journey is a metaphor for anyone seeking self-understanding and psychological maturity. Integration of archetypes. By the end of her journey, Alice begins to integrate the archetypes she encountered. Trickster, embracing creativity, spontaneity, and unpredictability. Shadow, acknowledging repressed fears, anger, and desires. Self, connecting with her inner wisdom and guidance. Anima/animus, reconciling inner feminine and masculine energies. Psychologically, this integration is a core of individuation, accepting all parts of oneself, even the chaotic or uncomfortable, and finding harmony. Reflection on chaos and order. Wonderland teaches that life is not always logical, linear, or controllable. Chaos is not an enemy. It is a teacher, a mirror, and a gateway to insight. Order alone does not bring growth. True understanding emerges from navigating paradox, ambiguity, and uncertainty. Alice's story encourages us to embrace life's unpredictability, seeing it as an opportunity for transformation rather than a threat. Reflection for the listener. Ask yourself, how often do I resist the unpredictable aspects of my life? Which parts of my shadow remain unrecognized, controlling me silently? Am I listening to my inner guidance? Or am I lost in external expectations and rigid logic? How can I integrate chaos, creativity, and reflection to become more whole? The journey of Alice is a mirror for anyone willing to explore themselves honestly and courageously. Why this matters. Alice in Wonderland, through a Jungian lens, is more than a children's tale. It is a psychological guide offering insight into identity and self-awareness, shadow integration, navigating uncertainty and chaos, discovering inner guidance and wisdom. For adults, it becomes a manual for personal growth, resilience, and transformation, showing that wonder, curiosity, and reflection are essential at every stage of life. Closing reflection of Part 6. As Alice leaves Wonderland, she carries lessons that remain long after the fantastical world fades. The unconscious is a source of insight and creativity, not a threat. Chaos and paradox are tools for growth, not obstacles. Shadow, fear, and unpredictability invite integration and maturity. True wisdom comes from embracing life's complexity with curiosity, courage, and reflection. Wonderland is therefore not just a magical place. It is a map of the mind, a guide to psychological wholeness, and a call to live fully and consciously.